You ever get that, like, kind of creepy feeling online
Uh-huh.
where it's like you're just this, data point
Yeah.
being, like, tossed around
Mm.
and you don't have any say in it?
Yeah, definitely.
Today, we're diving into that whole, that tension
Okay.
between feeling totally powerless online versus, actually having some control and being able to, like, I don't know, fight back a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people are feeling more and more, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so to help us unpack all of this, we're looking closely at Carole Cadwalladr's TED Talk.
Okay.
It's called "You Are Not Powerless: Reclaiming the Internet from Big Tech."
Right.
And we're going to, pull out the most important insights and useful stuff for you so you can, actually make sense of it all,
Yeah, it can feel so overwhelming sometimes.
for sure. Especially when you're, just trying to, like, live your life online.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get too far, one thing I want to point out is that this isn't just like some theory or whatever. Cadwalladr is a journalist who's, been in the trenches.
Right. She's right there on the front lines.
And she's faced the consequences of, calling out big tech, like directly.
Yeah, this is not just an academic exercise for her. She's put a lot on the line.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why her perspective is, I think, so powerful. Because, she's asking this huge question. Is the way that big tech operates, is it actually, like, messing with our democracies?
That's a really big question.
It is. And if it is, what can we even do about it?
Right.
Like, do we actually have any power?
Yeah.
So right off the bat, she starts by talking about fear.
Mm.
And not just like, a little bit of fear. She's talking about like real serious anxiety.
Yeah.
Because she was in this like 3-year legal battle.
Wow.
Because of stuff she said about the dangers of big tech.
So basically, they came after her for speaking out.
Yeah, basically. And that's why she starts with fear.
Right.
Because it was like a real thing for her. And then she really grabs your attention, from the start. She says, the situation we're in now, it's a data-driven takeover.
Oh, wow.
A coup, but not with like guns and tanks.
Right, right.
It's with algorithms.
It's almost like sneakier in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's happening behind the scenes, right in front of our faces.
Right. And most of us don't even realize it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And this whole idea, it like totally changes how you think about power in today's world.
Absolutely. It's not about like physical control, but about controlling information.
Right. And she goes on to use this phrase that I think is so brilliant, broligarchy. What do you think about that term?
I mean, it's a little jarring, but it's also incredibly accurate, right? It really captures this like intertwined power structure between Silicon Valley and these authoritarian governments and, the global tech elite.
Yeah, and they're all like feeding off each other in this like messed up way.
Exactly. It's like a closed loop where they all benefit from maintaining the status quo, and anyone who rocks the boat becomes a threat.
Right. And she brings up Putin's Russia as an example, which is pretty, tense.
Yeah.
Because she's basically saying that in Russia, if you're loyal to Putin,
You get rewarded.
yeah, you get wealth, you get power. But in the tech world, loyalty doesn't mean like saluting a flag.
Right.
It means like staying quiet.
Keeping your mouth shut.
Yeah, being complicit.
Right. Not rocking the boat, basically.
Exactly. And that comparison is so important because it shows that these platforms, they're not just like neutral tools,
Definitely not. They've become incredibly powerful, influential players on the global stage.
Yeah, global power players. And this leads to the really uncomfortable thing she talks about next, which is surveillance. She says, and this is a really, really powerful line, she says, "We are already living inside the architecture of totalitarianism."
That's a chilling thought.
It is. And I think, most people don't even realize it, but she's saying that all of this data collection, all of the tracking and monitoring, it's basically normalized surveillance to a level that we've never seen before.
It's become so commonplace that we barely even question it anymore.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah.
And she actually compares Google to the Stasi,
Wow.
the East German secret police,
Yeah.
but like on a global scale.
Right.
So that's pretty intense.
It's a deliberate comparison, though, right? She's trying to wake us up to just how much data is being collected on all of us, all the time.
Yeah, and what it means for our privacy, our freedom.
Exactly. And she really hits hard on this point about our kids, too.
Yeah.
Like all of their data being mined and stored. She
Wow.
even says that in the future, people might look back on this and see it as a form of abuse.
It's disturbing, but she's right to bring it up.
Oh, absolutely.
It really makes you think twice about, what you're letting your kids do online. Now, she also spends some time talking about AI, but she doesn't focus on, like, robots taking over the world.
Oh, no, not the Terminator scenario.
No, not that. She's more worried about how AI is, like, changing our understanding of reality.
Okay, yeah.
She calls it the collapse of shared reality, which is, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
So how would you explain that, to someone who's not familiar with the idea?
Basically, she's saying that because of these AI algorithms that curate our feeds, they're shaping what we see, what we read, what we hear, what we believe. It's all being filtered through this lens of AI, and it's creating these like echo chambers where people are increasingly living in different realities.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard to even have a conversation, when you can't agree on like basic facts.
Yeah, for sure. And then she takes it even further. You know that saying, politics is downstream from culture?
Yeah, right.
She flips it. She says, now it's like culture is downstream from AI.
Oh, wow. That's a huge shift.
It is. And it makes you think, are we actually in control of our own thoughts and opinions?
Or are they being like subtly manipulated by algorithms without us even realizing it?
Yeah, exactly. Now, another really important part of her talk is when she talks about her own experience with the legal system.
Yeah.
Specifically, something called this SLAPP lawsuit.
Right.
So for anyone who, has no clue what that is, can you break that down a little bit?
So a SLAPP lawsuit, it stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation.
Okay.
It's basically a way to shut people up, to silence critics. It's not about winning the lawsuit, really.
Right?
It's about dragging it out, making it so expensive and time-consuming that the person just gives up.
Wow.
Which is exactly what they tried to do to Cadwalladr to stop her investigations into, these powerful tech figures.
Right. And it's like they went all out. They dug into 40,000 pieces of her personal data.
That's incredible.
It's insane. I mean, the level of intrusion is just mind-boggling.
It is. And it really highlights how far these powerful people will go to protect themselves and silence dissent.
Yeah. And she also talks about how, as a woman journalist, she faced a specific kind of abuse.
Yeah.
She calls it a digital witch burning, which I thought was a really powerful way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's often this element of misogyny to online harassment, especially towards women who, speak out against powerful men.
Yeah. And it's like they're trying to discredit her, make her seem crazy,
Absolutely. It's a way to silence their critics and discourage others from speaking out.
Right. Exactly. But even with all of this, there's this, like, really hopeful part of her story, too.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of support she got from the public.
It was incredible.
I mean, 30,000 people rallied behind her. They raised almost £1 million for her legal defense.
That's amazing.
It is. And it shows that, even when you're up against these massive forces, collective action can actually make a difference.
Yeah, people power.
Yeah. And that leads to one of her most powerful lines, which is, "We are the cavalry now."
I love that line. It's so good. And it's like a call to arms,
Yeah. It's a reminder that we can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix this.
Right. We have to be the ones to step up and demand change.
Exactly. And she has some really concrete ideas for how to do that.
Yeah, like supporting press freedom, advocating for more transparency.
Right. And using tools like the Wayback Machine to preserve online content and encrypted messaging apps like Signal to protect our communications.
Yeah, so there are things we can do.
Absolutely. And she doesn't stop there. She also lays out these practical, everyday things we can all do, which she calls digital disobedience.
So tell me more about that. Like, what are some examples of digital disobedience?
Well, it's all about being more conscious of how we interact online. Like, not just blindly accepting cookies on every website or being careful about using your real name everywhere, choosing to use encrypted messaging apps. It's about making it harder for companies to track us and collect our data.
Okay, yeah.
And she has this really striking metaphor telling us not to bomb Yemen. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like a wake-up call, right? Because she's saying that even our inaction, our passive acceptance of how things are, it can have real consequences.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. Now, one of the most talked about moments in her talk was when she actually used AI to, like, write a version of her speech.
Oh, right, with ChatGPT.
Yeah. And it was crazy because it sounded just like her.
It was incredibly convincing, yeah. It really demonstrated how powerful AI is becoming.
Yeah, but then she went on to, like, totally denounce it.
It was a really powerful moment because she wasn't just showing off what AI could do. She was making a statement about the ethics of it all.
Right. And she straight up accused OpenAI of using her work and data without her permission.
Yeah. And her criticism of The Guardian was pretty scathing, too.
Oh, yeah, because they were, like, partnering with AI companies while laying off journalists, right?
Exactly. And she used this very striking analogy. She said it was like it married its rapist.
Yeah, it was definitely a strong statement.
It was, but it really captured her sense of betrayal, I think. And it highlights this huge question about how we're going to deal with AI ethically.
Especially when it comes to, creative work in journalism.
Absolutely.
Okay, so she wraps up her talk with this really, really powerful message aimed at, like, the biggest names in tech.
Right. Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, the whole crew.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to them, and this is so good.
Yeah.
She says, "You are not gods, you are men, and you are careless."
Ooh, mic drop.
It's so good. And she's basically telling them, like, you need to wake up. Your decisions has consequences.
Right. And aligning ourselves with tyrannical forces, it's not going to end well for anyone.
Exactly. And she ends by reminding us about her vision of the future, which is, a future where we reclaim the internet.
Right, where we build a true digital democracy and where data rights are recognized as human rights.
So I think it's safe to say that this deep dive into Carole Cadwalladr's message leaves us with a lot to think about.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
But even though she's, outlining these really serious challenges, I think her message is ultimately hopeful.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she's reminding us that we're not powerless.
Yeah.
We have agency. We can make choices that matter.
Right. It's about recognizing that power and using it. And it's not just about individual actions either.
Right. It's about collective action, too.
Yeah. Coming together to demand better
Yeah.
from these companies, from our governments.
Right. So for everyone listening, think about this. What's one small act of digital disobedience that you could try this week?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or, what part of Cadwalladr's argument really resonated with you?
Yeah.
What questions does it raise for you about, our digital future? Because ultimately, Cadwalladr's message is all about empowerment. It's about realizing that we have the power to shape a better future online, but we have to choose to use it.
I like that. A better future online. And it starts with being more conscious of how we interact with technology and with each other in this digital space.
Yeah, and with questioning the way things are.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have to just accept the status quo. We can demand better. We can fight for a digital world that works for everyone, not just the broligarchs.
I like that. For everyone.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thanks. I try. All right, well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for having me.